Hi, it's me, your boyfriend slash girlfriend slash stay friend, favorite content creator. And I want to talk to you guys, obviously, which is why I'm making this video, right? So I made a post earlier on my community page because I had thoughts and feelings, and I feel like it'd only be fair to make it a proper video, or at least proper for me. And let's just get down to it, okay? I thought I was very clear about my stances on things, how I approach things, but I guess people need a reminder, which fine, whatever. I am not here to placate. I am not here to coddle emotions, right? I am here, me, content creator. I am here to talk about things I want to talk about, whether it's things that I love, things that are upsetting me, things in the gaming space, and things that are, tangentially related to that. I'm bringing that up because I've been getting lots of comments recently along the lines of me being too extreme or more radicalized. And I'm like, if you think this is someone being radical, I am not the content creator for you, man, because I do not believe my stances are radical. This all stemmed because I got a comment talking about essentially how I don't both sides a topic, right? How I'm not trying to see things from the other ideological perspective. And I don't know how many times I've demonstrated this in my videos, but I have heard all of the arguments that the other side has. None of those arguments are worth entertaining. I have a whole playlist. I've made countless videos about this, right? Their arguments aren't based in any actual material reality. It's just their biases, and that's it. I have gotten so many comments about, well, you have to admit. No, I don't have to admit. Because what you want me to concede on is an insane point. There's forced diversity. There are too many women. Well, they only put this character in to score brownie. I'm like, you don't know any of this. And none of this is provable one way or the other, right? So what's the point of engaging in it? And I thought my last video when I reacted to like the November Hotel really highlighted that, right? That even in that video, the guy would mention actual valid points. And I gave him props for saying, yeah, these are actual points to talk about, right? Like with Concord, for example, and how the reason why it didn't do well because it was like wasn't that great in terms of a game, didn't set the world on fire. It cost money, right?
Removing all the wokeness for a second, the game was average on its own.
Then that's the problem. That's it. That's it. Like, they're so fucking stupid. Oh my God. I'm only 2 minutes into this. I am the React Lord when it comes to extending a video's time, right? But this is exactly what I was just talking about. The game being good or bad has nothing to do with perceived wokeness. If you say you strip away all this stuff and this is shit, then the game is shit. That's it. It doesn't matter if there's black characters or white characters or Asian characters or more men or more females or whatever. If the game at its core is repetitive or average at best, then it's an average at best game. And I even talked about that myself. I talked about, yeah, Concord didn't do well because it was a $40 hero shooter game in a genre that's usually dominated by free-to-play games. The gameplay felt a little outdated when it came out, and the people kept focusing on like, oh, their characters are so ugly. And I was like, no, I just think the art direction wasn't the right art direction. I think the actual character design was fine, but the art direction didn't work. So I'm going to tell you what the actual reason why this game didn't do well. Starting off with the fact that there was no way this game was going to recoup its development cost by having a $40 price tag, or really any price tag. Concord has been in development for 8 years. That's easily millions of dollars. When you factor in the way the game looks, right? The full body motion capture, paying all those people to do that stuff. Their idea of having weekly cutscenes, like full-fledged cutscenes. They're also going to be, maybe not still, but on that secret level show. All of that
is money. That's a lot of money. They were really banking on this becoming a massive hit out the gate. I don't know why they were having those expectations, considering the fact that the market they were trying to penetrate is so heavily oversaturated that literally hundreds of games have come out in this genre and have disappeared in the ether. In fact, the only games that are still out right now that could be comparable to this is Overwatch 2, Apex, Fortnite, the Modern Warfare, the battle game, right? And I'm missing one. Aren't I? I'm missing an obvious one. Tell me which one I'm missing. But point being, the market is fierce. And you have a game like Deadlock, which is by Valve, which is doing amazingly well. You also have the upcoming Marvel Rivals. And one thing all these games have in common for this genre is that they're free to play. Concord cost $40.
But at no point did I bring up like, oh, it's because the characters are woke. But November Hotel had similar points to me, but then added on saying, well, it probably would have sold more if the characters were attractive. I'm like, well, you can't say that because there's no proof of that, right? Like, there is no way to test that. So why even mention that? Why would I concede to those points? What does that add? Well, I think there's too many ugly characters. Okay. How is that affecting the gameplay? How is that affecting the sales? Like I've said a bunch of times, whatever you find attractive is what you find attractive, but it's not universal. You can't be like, this game is selling terribly because these characters are ugly. That can't be the reason why a game is failing, because that's never a reason why a game succeeds, which is something I was hoping people would pick up on, right? Like the unsent things that I leave out, right? Like, notice how these guys never mention that this game is doing well because there's a black guy in there, because there's a queer person in there, because there's a minority of some kind in there. It never does well because of those things. It does well because of the story and the writing or whatever. But when it's bad because, man, they should have had Jin Sakai be in Ghost of Yote instead of Atsu. Atsu's only going to be in this game because of some girl power thing. And I'm referencing that because if you saw my video talking about Andy Pants, specifically talking about Ghost of Yote, as essentially he points that he makes. Why would I concede to that point? Where is that information? He just made this up.
Toxic masculinity. This is not a joke.
Not a joke. He's not explaining.
The game takes place in the 1500s, 300 years after Jin Sakai. I was trying to figure out why they moved forward so far, and it's going to be for some kind of liberated girl boss reason, I'm telling you right now. Like she starts a movement to throw off the shackles of men or some nonsense like that. For the guys excited to play this game, can you imagine how absolutely cuck?
The fucking premise of the game is they murdered her family. That's the premise. Like if these guys are all insiders and all work for the company, then sure, I would concede. Damn, I know that they only put this character in there to score ESG points or DEI points. But that's a delusional take. I am not going to encourage that delusion, because we as a gaming society, and hell, society at large, are currently entertaining people like that. And look where we are. You can't find a new game coming out that has like minorities and women in it, that doesn't have 1,000 videos already, getting primed to be uploaded talking about why it's woke and gay and bad and all these things, right? There's this game that's coming out that's about, I'll put it up on the screen and kind of find the title, but that's about people of color, black people, going into museums and taking back items that were taken from their countries, right? And if you know anything about history, you know that a lot of, stuff that was taken from other countries was taken without permission. It was looted and then put on display, right? And so it's called relooted, there we go. And they're taking it back. And that's already been like, oh, look at that. They're having a black people stealing simulator. Most recently, during Gamescom, there was a game called Take Us North. And you have Rat King himself talking about, oh, look at this illegal immigrant simulator. You have AI, Pee Wee Herman, Smash JT, referring to them as illegal immigrant simulator. Oh, what's this, Jeff? Why are you so mad about this game? Are you afraid that because Asmongold exposed you? And it's like, oh, oh, illegal immigrant simulator, bad. But a game that's literally called Grand Theft Auto, you guys are hyped for the 6th one. Like there's no consistency. Why would I concede to people like that who don't have any real arguments? Your complaint is that there's a game about immigration. Your complaint is that there's a woman who's taking on the role of a samurai as a ghost. Like that's what I'm trying to communicate to you guys. These aren't people that you should be conceding to. Their points are pointless. They don't exist. They're not real. They're only there for them to get either social clout or to make money on YouTube. But there is no point engaging in that. And I know there's going to be people who say, but those are the low-hanging fruit. What about the other people? And I'm like, okay, the other argument then is just back to well, you have to admit, there has been like more diversity. Okay, now we're going back to the forced diversity argument again. How do you force diversity? If I'm choosing the setting, I get to pick what happens in that setting, right? Everything that's in a game and not in a game is a choice, unless it's a bug, unless it's from Bethesda, right? Everything is a choice. The fact that you people are hyperfixating on someone's skin color or ethnicity or gender or anything like that is a you problem. But that's also the problem. You're like, oh man, there's so many women. There's too many of this. I mean, goddamn, you've seen my videos hopefully about like the woke content detector and that list and how one of the issues is the game was woke because it has an improbable amount of female combatants. You had that loser Synthetic Man being upset that in Space Marine 2, that there was an Indian woman who was in command of the army. He didn't think she was hot. And there was a black Custodes.
And one more thing I gotta briefly mention is the small amount of wokeness in the game, depending on your definition. Basically, the only left-wing propaganda I noticed while playing this game is the comical amount of diversity. The most offensive being the major of the Cadian guardsmen, who is an Indian woman, an ugly one at that. And while she really doesn't do much during the story other than yell on the comms throughout the first half of the game, it's just incredibly annoying seeing girl boss characters in this day and age, especially in a supposedly grim dark universe. And the diversity isn't just the guardsmen, it's also the Space Marines. Now, again, I'm not an expert on the lore, but I understand that Space Marines come from Gene Seed, which comes from their Primarchs, right? Which comes from, ultimately, the Emperor. So why are all these Ultramarines different ethnicities? Shouldn't they all be the same race as Gilliman? Again, I'm not an expert on this, but I feel like portrayals I've seen of Space Marines, they're generally all white, except for the Salamanders, who are like charcoal black or something. One of Titus's squad mates is black-ish, and the other one is like a Happa or something. It's hard to tell because they all have these weird Giga Chad features. Basically, every Space Marine looks like the Chad meme, so there is one Space Marine that is just straight up undeniably African, which is bizarre. He's corrupted! You can see it on his skin.
And that's woke. That's an issue to bring up. Like, do you understand how insane it is to say that? And then how even more insane it is to ask me to concede those points, to listen to that, to be like, hey, you don't have a point. You don't have a point. Like, what the fuck? Like, you don't have a point. Unless you want to prove that you're just a bigot who's afraid of literally anything. And so you have to, jot down a list of, oh, there's too many black people here. Actually, realistically speaking, population size in America is 30% black. So there should only be, there's a game with 100 people. It's only 13 of them should be black. If there's 14 black people, it's too much. It's fake. It's woke. It's forced. What is even forced diversity? Again, there are decisions that are being made. Okay? When you play those games and they have nothing but white people in there, guess what? They decide to have nothing but white people in there. Is that not a forced diversity? Or I guess in this case, a force of lack of diversity? Are we not allowed to interrogate that? Or is it only a problem when you see people look like me in front of the camera? Is it only an issue when you have the options to kiss a boy when you're playing as a boy character? Like, I'm being a little facetious, but that's what I'm trying to communicate with you guys. This is what you're wanting me to give credence to. You want me to concede to these points? You want me to consider this point of view? No, I'm not going to consider a bigot's point of view and take that into any real consideration and go, hey, you know what? You're right. There are too many Asians in this game. Like, what? Because those are the only arguments being made from these sides. That's it. It's people are unattractive and there's too much diversity. That's it. Like, look at their content. It's never just like this game has terrible writing, right? Perfect example. They always bring up Dragon Age, right? They talk about how, remember that point in Dragon Age where you character accidentally misgendered someone and so you did push-ups? Yeah, I would say that's pretty bad writing. I would say Dragon Age as a whole had bad writing, especially compared to like other games like Mass Effect from the same company, right? But the writing is not bad because there's a non-binary character. The writing's bad because the writing was bad. Like that's something that I feel like gets missed. Games can be bad, writing can be bad, not because there is a black character or a queer character present, but because the writing is bad. And I've seen people say, well, the writing's bad and they force this character in there and that's what makes it bad. No, like every character is forced, first off, because again, there's no natural game, right? Like there's no natural game. Games aren't out in the wild being born. There's creative teams that come together that create these characters. They write these characters. They rewrite these characters, right? And some of them have good writing, like in Mass Effect. Some of them have not so good writing, like in Dragon Age. But it's not because, oh, well, these characters are white, so the writing is going to be stellar. Oh, what, there's a black character here? We'll make it bad because black people make the things bad. Like, that's the only logic that exists, and that makes no sense. You guys want me so desperately to just regurgitate things to make you feel better. Again, that's not my bag. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to get on here and say, well, you know what? This side that wants more diversity and representation is just as bad as this side who thinks trans people should be murdered. Like, yeah, that's what I'm going to be like. Yeah, let's both sides these issues. You cannot both sides every issue. And this doesn't mean I lack nuance. I would like to believe I actually have a lot of nuance, which is why when I talk about these games, I don't bring up the identity of the people making it unless it is pertinent to the game itself, aka like Andy Pance's game, that's literally called Chad versus the Gay Nazis. I think it's important then to understand the creator of that game. But in like big budget games, even like smaller AA games, I want to focus on the game. I don't think Expedition 33 is a great RPG because white dudes made it. I think it's a great RPG because it's a great RPG. I personally like the combat system. I think the aesthetic is different and new. I like the fact that it's more of a mature theme, right? Not to say that RPGs don't have mature themes, but I like that it's with older characters for the most part and not like teenagers, for example, right? I like the fact that it's telling a story in a way that I haven't really seen done before. I think it's pretty cool that you can make interesting character builds by going crazy with the pictos. There's so many things like about the game, the music, the atmosphere. Like there's lots of things I can like about the game that have nothing to do with the fact that like, well, I like the game because there's no X group of people there. Everyone's straight. Like, because that makes no sense. That's not important to what the subject matter, the heart of the game. Every time you guys want me to concede points to these people, understand what you're asking me to do. I have no problems talking about a game's strengths and weaknesses, right? But a strength and weakness is never going to be, oh, they have white guys in there, so it's a good game. Oh, there's no queers? Oh, it's the best game in the world. That's never going to be it. And I know you think I'm being hyperbolic, but that's literally the arguments we are seeing. There's too many gay people in games. There's too many trans people. There's too many women. There's too many minorities. That is their argument. Or it's they're not hot enough. Those are the only arguments that they have. They never talk about a game from a mechanical level. Anytime they even broach something that might be considered analysis, they quickly double down on, oh, but it's because it's woke. That November Hotel video, again, when he was talking about why Conquer didn't do well, he ended that by saying because the characters were ugly. If the characters weren't ugly, it would have done better. How would have characters being hotter fixed the core issues? The game I always bring up, The First Ascendant, has quote unquote hot, sexy characters, right? You can be skimpy, you can go to the fucking hot tubs and whatever, and boobies bouncing and butts everywhere. And they are struggling to maintain a player base because that is not the end all be all. In fact, that's less important than people will like those grifters want you to believe. I have talked about it in my Bones video, right? Stellar Blade versus X-Blades. And a lot of people on that video were saying, well, this game came out 1,000 years ago. I'm like, that's not the point, right? The point is, there are more to games than just, is this character hot or not? There are more to games than just how many white people are in this. Where are the white straight guys? Like, you guys want me to concede to people who truly believe that an agency like Sweet Baby Inc. has such monumental power that they can have people add whole characters to games way after the character creation process. Like, you want me to believe in people who believe that the entire game industry, or the Western game industry, has an agenda to make women unattractive in games as to what, tank their sales so they can be activists? You want me to forget that capitalism is a driving force for these corporations? When I've made videos, when you guys have seen articles of Microsoft making billions of dollars and shutting down studios next day, like, you want me to forget that and be like, hey, you know what? Those guys have a point. That's idiocy. No, I'm not going to do that. If you want that from me, you might as well unfollow me right now and don't recommend my channel. I'm not going to do that. I will point out the idiocy of that as much as I can until we have to stop dealing with it. But I'm not going to do that. That's so dumb. Like, Jesus Christ, that why would I do that? Like, that's the problem we have here. We have too many people who think that, and this might be ironic considering I'm about to say, right? We have too many people who think every single opinion is valid, that everyone's point of view has equal weight. And I'm sorry, that's just not how this works. If you want to enter a particular arena, you need to have a certain level of knowledge. I am not an astrophysicist, right? I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not an astronomer or anything like that. I just think science is cool and I like to learn on my own. I should never be on like a podium with like the ghost of Carl Sagan, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like, I should never be on a panel with those guys. Unless we're talking about animes we like or video games we like. If we're talking about like science, I should not be on that panel. My opinion here means nothing. Because who the fuck am I in this context? Just some dude? Why would the opinions of people who think that video games are being taken over by activists, why should that matter? Why should we give that equal credence to people who have been in the industry for decades, or people who are creators who know the ins and outs, like, or people with just common sense? Why should we say, you know what, that's just as valid? Go watch fucking Jubilee videos where they have flat earthers and scientists on equal footing. But I'm not Jubilee. I will never be Jubilee. I hope this video clarifies some things, right? I'm not doing that shit. Like, you guys want to call me radical? Cool. Radical leftist, baby. Love empathy. Love people learning things, being critical of things, engaging in the hobbies and engaging in the media they consume on a somewhat deeper level. That's what I'm all about. And some fun, right? But I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, let's listen in earnest to what the fuck Andy Pants has to say. Let's really take in what Asmongold's talking about, because he has proven that he's a deep thinker who truly thinks about topics and isn't just some reactionary dude who does whatever he can to make the most people upset so he can make money. Like, okay.